This is take 3. Take 2 was accidentally live on stream. I apologize to you guys. It was really bad. I'm still feeling it. Hopefully it was funny for everyone else. Hey guys, this is Bulbtastic. I wanted to just say thank you so much for having me for another Game of the Year video. Thanks to TooStupidGamerz and thanks to all of you. Apologies in advance. I'm gonna be like looking around because I have my notes here. And I'm really bad at looking at the camera. So sorry guys. This is my Game of the Year list for 2020, even though we're recording it in 2021. Nothing has changed. I do have a list of games that I want to say beforehand that I have not played yet, so you guys don't freak out on me, because there's a few big ones. Yakuza 7, haven't played it yet. I'm doing the series in release order, so I'm still on 5 at the moment. I played 1 through 5, haven't even played 0 yet, so I'm gonna be getting to that eventually. Persona 5 Royal, I played the original. I'm not quite ready to play Royal yet. It's a long game. So also Half-Life Alyx, I did not have access to VR. I'm just starting to play it now, so that won't be making the list. Doom Eternal, Crash 4, sorry 0, but yeah, I haven't played Crash 4 yet. Spider-Man, Demon Souls, Bugsnax, 13 Sentinels is my big one. Also, I just started playing that, so it won't be on the list. I think if I did play them, Yakuza 7 and 13 Sentinels would make the list. Possibly even Alyx. So just keep that in mind, you know. You could consider them honorable mentions that I haven't played yet, right? But my real honorable mentions, I'll say Fall Guys Battle Royale. I thought it was really good. Very surprising that I would like that kind of game because I don't really like party games very much. I don't even like Smash Brothers, I gotta admit, but Fall Guys is really good. It's an original concept. Surprisingly, nobody's made this kind of game before. It was just a big surprise. It came out at like the same time that Among Us was getting popular, but I preferred Fall Guys. Not to say Among Us is bad or anything, it's just not my kind of thing. Yeah, Star Wars Squadrons is next. I did buy this game. It was very good, very enjoyable. I do recommend it if you're into flying games, but I decided not to put it on the list. It doesn't feel like a top 10 game to me, so yeah. And, my big honorable mention, not the last honorable mention, but my big honorable mention is a 2-year-old game that got re-released, Dragon Quest 11 Definitive Edition. I know I talk about this game too much. Even in the last 2 Game of the Year lists I talked about it. So yeah, I don't want to put it on the list, but it did get re-released this year as the S Definitive Edition. It's on the Switch, PC, Xbox, and PS4. So you can get it wherever you want. I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorites. And my last honorable mention is Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. I know some of you will be surprised to hear that, but I did really enjoy it. I do like Call of Duty. I haven't played one in a while since... Actually, no, I played Black Ops 4, but I didn't like that one too much. This one was really good. And the same thing as it usually is, so don't expect a big change or anything, but they still have the great campaign, they have the great multiplayer, they have the new Warzone mode. Just a fair warning though, it installs over 100 gigs. I'm not quite sure what the number is. Be wary of the space requirement on PC, I think on console as well, so yeah. Before we get to the list, I want to say my worst game of the year is Warcraft 3 Reforged. I know some of you are surprised that it's not Cyberpunk, but I actually like Cyberpunk and it's in my top 10 list just to surprise you guys, right? Warcraft 3, on the other hand, was a complete failure in my eyes. Legendary game, and they just completely dropped the ball in the remake. It almost like they didn't care because they didn't even fix the problems until now. It's been almost, I think it might actually be a year already. It's been actually a year or close. And it seems like it's been forgotten, you know. But also on top of that, they retroactively broke the old game too, because they tried to make them compatible with each other. And the only thing it's done for me is that it's destroyed my trust in Blizzard. That was already damaged. So I think Warcraft 3 was the worst release of 2020. But yeah, let's get to the real list, shall we? Number 10 is Phantasy Star Online 2. Yes, an 8-year-old game, I know, but it's only less than a year old in the US, so I'm gonna count it. And yeah, they had a troubled launch for this one. Came out on Xbox only and Windows Store only, and a lot of people had a lot of problems with it, but I think it is well worth your time if you like online games. If you need a game to play with your friends, you can just hop in and hop out. It's very friendly with that stuff. The game seems kind of difficult and convoluted at first, but if you just watch a quick like YouTube video or something, it's actually pretty easy to understand. It just seems difficult, but it's really simple. So I'd say play it, and if you want, you could also wait for the new version, which is almost a completely different game. That's coming out this spring, apparently. Hopefully. So yeah, Phantasy Star Online 2, the long-awaited sequel to one of my favorite online games, you know. Absolutely incredible work from Sega. I am a little biased, just saying, but... Number 9 is Cyberpunk 2077. I actually really enjoyed Cyberpunk despite all the flaws, and like I said earlier, it does definitely deserve the flack, but not as much as it's been blown out of proportion, you know. Like I said earlier, Warcraft 3 was a much bigger failure because it wasn't fixed, but Cyberpunk gets all this negative attention because of how anticipated it was. It gets exponentially blown up based on the amount of people who were looking forward to it. It is a great experience with a great story, and you can play it from start to finish without any issues, unless you're on console. But I think it's been fixed by this video's release, so I don't want anyone to say that I'm defending the problems, because I think they definitely deserve a lot of the flack, but I also at the same time think it's been meme-ified, you know, like there's people who haven't even played it who talk about how bad it is, you know, and it's really not that bad, you know. Give it a try, or wait for the patches and give it a try later, as long as you give it a try. Number 8 is Risk of Rain 2. Risk of Rain 2 came out in 2019 in early access, but the official release was in 2020, and I think it's one of the best indie games and also one of the best multiplayer games. And I'm not a big multiplayer guy, but I think Risk of Rain 2 has everything. It has great multiplayer, it changes every time you play it, it has an amazing soundtrack, it has a great art style, it has unlockable characters who are all different, and I think for such a simple game, for such a small game, you can get so many hours out of it. And I don't like games where you have to replay the same content over and over again, but I'll make an exception for Risk of Rain. I really like it. I think it's a great thing to play if you have a group of people to play with. Give it a try. If you don't know what it is, it's kind of like you go from level to level and you kill waves of monsters and you try to find the exit while also buying items that are pretty much random, so you don't know which items you're gonna get every playthrough. It completely changes the way the game works. Each item has like a drastic effect on you, so I'd say check it out. It's really cheap. My next game, number 7. I should say the numbers right. Number 7, Streets of Rage 4. One of the series I grew up with. I had Streets of Rage 2 growing up on my Genesis, and I played it a lot, very, very much. It had a big impact on me with the soundtrack and just the style. It looks like a 80s like punk movie, I guess you'd describe it, like a street gang movie. It's got a crazy like 90s club music soundtrack. And then Streets of Rage 4 comes out probably like more than 20 years later. I don't actually know how many years it's been. And made by a completely different team, a Western team. And I was really nervous, but they completely nailed it, you know. They did a great job. I played through it like once or twice so far. It has a completely new campaign, but also it has like retro throwback stuff in the missions and characters from the old games in their old pixely form, stuff like that. It has a soundtrack featuring the composer of Streets of Rage 2, but a bunch of other composers as well. And also you can put on the retro soundtrack if you want. So I think Streets of Rage 2 is like probably better than 3, which is crazy. Like Streets of Rage 2 and 4 are probably the best games in the series. So yeah, I'd say play it. Number 6, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 HD. That was a big surprise to me because this seemed like it was going to be a dead series after 5, right? And after HD. Yikes. But they made a new remake of 1 and 2. And they really, really nailed it. It was Vicarious Visions, who have been making Game Boy Advance ports of these games. Like they did, I think, 2, 3, 4, and then Underground 1 and 2, and American Wasteland on Game Boy Advance. A ton of ports. But then they get this opportunity to do an HD remake, and they nail it. It was absolutely perfect. They did every stage from 1 and 2. Very faithfully remade. They didn't change much. They got all the skaters. I'm not sure if any are missing actually, but there are a few new ones. They got most of the soundtrack, including some new songs. And they let you play with the gameplay from 2 in the stages of 1, or you could turn off that stuff. So yeah, there's just a ton of options. They did everything so well. It doesn't even feel like a new game. It feels like they just updated the look of the first 2. The only complaint I have is the online is a little wonky. On PC, it's really hard to join your friends sometimes. And it likes to randomize the modes and the stages. I'm not sure if they fixed it by now, but yeah, I think they could do a better job with the online play. But yeah, no, this was almost a perfect remake, which is incredible to me. They were big, influential games in my life, especially 1 and 2, and 3, which I wish they included 3, but I get it, you know. 3 is probably going to get its own remake, so... Number 5 is Final Fantasy VII Remake. I know Nanners is going to be upset with me for this one. And I do have my complaints about this. I think it's not perfect, but I did thoroughly enjoy it. I thought it was great. I'm not going to spoil anything, don't worry. But yeah, FF7 Remake, they did an amazing job with all the characters. If you go back and play FF7, the original, it is still a great game, right? But it, first of all, visually doesn't hold up. I know that's not really important, but also, there's one thing that people don't talk about, and that's a lot of the characters don't get time to shine in the original. Like, Tifa doesn't have that much time to have her own moments. And Barrett too. Barrett has like one story thing in the original, and then he kind of disappears forever. But yeah, I think FF7 Remake, they changed the combat to action combat, which I'm not sure was the best move, but I think where it really shines is gave every character room to breathe. Like, Tifa is easily the best character in this version, and she was always my favorite, but she wasn't necessarily the best character in the original. She doesn't really get that much like talking scenes. She doesn't get that many cutscenes. In this one, she really shines. And yeah, this is part 1, right? They took the 6 hours of the first game and they stretched them out to 30. And yeah, there's a lot of padding. I will agree with that. There's too much combat, I'd say. The dungeons are a little too long. Some of them are not necessary, like the train graveyard. I didn't like that one at all. But for the sake of story, I think the extra scenes they added really add to it. They really flesh the characters out. So I'd say give it a try, and if you did not like it at first, maybe give it another shot. Do not play on easy mode. Easy mode's kind of a rip-off. But yeah, FF7 Remake, I'm really curious to see where they're going from here. They haven't even mentioned part 2 yet, so we'll see what happens, but I'll get it. Number 4, Genshin Impact. I know that's another surprise, right? I don't really play mobile games and I don't really play gacha games, but Genshin Impact, at least on PC, was one of my favorite games of 2020. It was a big surprise. But I guess maybe not, because it's also kind of a Breath of the Wild clone, and that was one of my favorites. But for this free-to-play gacha game, they really did an amazing job with gameplay. It has some of the best like action combat. It almost plays like a Platinum game. It has fully action combat with elemental effects, and you have to swap characters out on the fly to combine element effects, which each character has an element to them. The controversial part of this game is that you unlock characters through the gacha system, which means you get like a random roll and it costs money or like in-game currency, but I guess most people are going to pay money for it. I have not paid any money for it, and I've gotten like 30 to 40 hours in already, and it's been great. So I'd say even if you're feeling cautious about it, give Genshin Impact a try. It's free, so you won't lose anything, and it's actually legitimately good, I'd say. Big surprise for 2020. Number 3 is Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. And I know what you're saying right now, that Dragon Quest was an honorary mention because of this. Xenoblade Chronicles is a full remake of Xenoblade for the Wii and the 3DS. And this is definitely the best version. It looks the best. It plays the best. It has quality of life features. They made the side quests easier to maintain. The UI is better. The graphics are better. And I just want to say, I'm not going to spoil anything, but this is one of my favorite game stories and one of my favorite game worlds. So please check it out if you're into RPGs. It has a weird sort of MMO style combat system, but give it a chance even if you're against that. I highly recommend Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition for the Switch. It's only on the Switch. Don't play the other versions because this one is better. Get it on the Switch. Oh, and there we go, we're in the top 2 time. Number 2 is going to be a surprise as well to a lot of people. I don't really talk about this that much, but number 2 is Trials of Mana. Trials of Mana is a full remake of one of my favorite games ever, which was Trials of Mana on the SNES now, but it used to be called Seiken Densetsu 3. It was never released in the US until 2019, I think. Collection of Mana came out. They finally translated it, and that was really amazing of them to do. So I never expected a full remake to come out. They announced it shortly after, but I was skeptical because the Secret of Mana remake was bad. I'm just gonna say it straight, it was bad. So I thought this was gonna be bad too, but like Nanners said, this is almost like a Ys game now. So if you're into Ys, I'd say try this out. This game is unique because it lets you pick 3 characters out of I think there's 9 characters. Wait, no. There's 6 characters, and you pick 3 of them, and the story changes depending on who you pick. So you gotta do multiple playthroughs, but they're short. It's relatively short. It has fully action combat, like the East series. Don't go into it thinking the story is gonna be amazing or anything. It's a pretty simple story and very standard anime style dialogue, so that stuff's not gonna blow you away, but it's just a fun game to play. It has a fun world. It looks old school and new school at the same time. It has an amazing soundtrack, which was also remade, and they did a great job. So yeah, I highly recommend Trials of Mana. It's on PC, PS4, Switch. I'm not sure if it's on Xbox. And yeah, it's from Square Enix. I'd say get it. It's probably cheap right now. Definitely get it. That's my number 2. And my number 1, which if you've seen the other video you won't be surprised at all, but my number 1 is Ghost of Tsushima from Sucker Punch, who's slowly becoming one of my favorite development studios. And this was another surprise because it's almost like an Assassin's Creed clone, but it's actually way better. They did a full, basically tribute to Kurosawa movies. And growing up I always wanted a samurai game. There have been a few like Way of the Samurai or Samurai Champloo for PS2, but there's never been like a real like GTA style like samurai game where you wander around and help people. We finally got it here with some of the best graphics ever. The environments in this game are like unrivaled, even on PC. And they also solved the boring minimap problem from open world games by changing a minimap to the wind guiding you to where you need to go, which is an amazing touch. Not completely realistic, but who cares, right? And I do want to say it's not perfect. It does get repetitive. A lot of the content is the same, but the story is amazing. The voice acting in both English and Japanese are both amazing. The graphics are amazing. It's just a real treat. Even if you don't like these kinds of games, I'd say please pick this up and try it out. Especially if you have a PS5. This runs perfectly on PS5, 60 FPS. I don't have a PS5, but I played it on PS4 Pro. But yeah, I would highly recommend Ghost of Tsushima. Absolutely, number 1 for the year. Even if I played the other games, I think this would still be number 1. So yeah, let me run through the list again. 10 was Phantasy Star Online 2. 9 was Cyberpunk 2077. 8 was Risk of Rain 2. 7, Streets of Rage 4. 6 was Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 HD. 5 was FF7 Remake. 4 was Genshin Impact. Number 3 was Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. 2 was Trials of Mana. And 1 was Ghost of Tsushima. And, you know, despite all the bad stuff that happened, 2020 ended up being a really good year for games. I'm glad we had something to do, you know. And, you know, Animal Crossing didn't make my list. It was actually kind of disappointing to me. It's not where I want the series to go, so if you didn't see Animal Crossing on that list, that's why. So don't yell at me in the comments. You probably will anyway. But yeah, no, much respect to people who enjoyed it, but I did not. But yeah, that's my list. I hope 2021 is just as good, if not better. We did get new consoles, so it's probably going to be a little slow to get game releases out. Yeah, we're on our way to a new gen, which has started, but not really. It really starts later. And I'm looking forward to a lot of games this year. Nier Remake, Rune Factory 5, ooh, what else? Shin Megami Tensei 3 and 5 remakes. No, remakes of 3, not 5. 5 is new. Even the Lego Star Wars game I'm looking forward to. That's gonna be awesome. I'm probably forgetting a bunch. we'll get to it, you know, we'll get to it when they come out. And I'll see you guys at the next video and on the podcast and on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Bulbtastic. Thank you so much again, guys, for having me on, and good luck with all the videos this year. I'm sure it'll be great, and I'll see you guys next year. Haha. Peace.